And this is one you do not want to miss. All right, so get ready. I'm going to be playing audio and video to discuss. So, to get all of that, you have to go to my main live stream, which I'm about to link in the description of the video, all right? Let's see here. And we got a lot to cover on the podcast today. A lot. Hey, guys. The link to the main live stream, which I'll be starting shortly, is in the description. All right. All right, it's showtime. And if you want to call in, the toll-free number is pinned in the live chat. Okay, hold on. Oh, okay. Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. Welcome to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. Oh man, we've got some exciting stuff to cover. I want to go over what happened with Piers Morgan and Candace Owens, and some other people have jumped in on this. And I'm shocked that people have not picked up on what really happened between Piers Morgan and Candace Owens. And I'm going to share that with you in a few minutes. You will not want to miss it. You have not heard this before. I'm going to go through some of the exchange between Piers Morgan and Candace Owens. It's all about the Charlie Kirk assassination. And what you're going to hear from me in a few minutes is something that you have not heard anywhere else, okay? And I'm just, sometimes these things, sometimes they're out there, and you would think that everybody would know this, but they don't. But you're going to hear it first in just a moment. But just as I was about to hit the go live button on the podcast here, President Trump dropped some major news. Look at this. Just signed an executive order providing for the closing of executive departments and agencies of the federal government on December 24th through December 26th, 2025. So he has just made Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas. These are all now federal holidays. Starting next week, by the way. This is not waiting till next year. The Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas are now federal holidays, which is awesome, isn't it? It's a great thing. It should have been that way all along, but Trump did it. And I'll tell you something about, isn't it amazing having such a great president that's getting things done? The war on Christmas is officially over. You know, the Democrats, the left have for about 25 years, longer than that actually. This started in the 70s. They were trying to get rid of Christmas. It had to do, listen, liberals are communist. Democratic socialists are communist. And if you go to the communist nations of the world, they sometimes they outlaw Christianity because Jesus, God, get in the way of the government telling you how to live your life. So the Democrats have been trying to get God out of the public square, and the first step in that is to take Christ out of Christmas. And one thing that they started doing that faded away, you don't see this too much anymore, and I know there'll be some smarty pants that leaves me a comment that says, that's not true, it's in Greek and all this stuff. When they started with Xmas instead of Christmas, and they were Xmas instead of Christmas, that was a big thing in the 70s and the 80s. I don't see it anymore so much. In fact, I don't remember the last time I've seen Xmas. That is taking Christ out of Christmas and literally putting an X over Christ in Christmas. And that was an attempt to get Christ out of Christmas. Then they stopped with saying Merry Christmas. They ran that for a whole bunch of years, and saying Happy Holidays. And this Happy Holidays thing got so out of control that I remember a few years back, I talked about this on the show when it happened. I couldn't believe it. It was the 4th of July, and I go to Publix. 4th of July, I go to Publix, and I go to the Publix deli, getting a Publix sub. And if you are in Florida, you know about the Publix subs. They're very popular. And it was the 4th of July, and the women working in the deli were wishing people a happy holiday on the 4th of July. Instead of saying, Happy 4th of July, have a great 4th, they were saying, have a happy holiday. And I remember I saw, who's that no talent on the late night show? He used to be on MTV. Not Jimmy Kimmel, not Jimmy Fallon. Do you know who I'm talking about, Kathy? I can't remember which one. It'll come to me, or somebody in the chat will know. I saw this guy. He was one of the late night hosts. He used to be on MTV. He did this fake audition on MTV when they had that one with the tweaker Jesse. Remember Jesse on MTV, that actor? What was his name? I can't remember his name. But anyway, I saw him on an interview, and it was a Christmas time interview. And he says, oh yeah, you know, the holiday's coming up, and I'm going to go and visit my mom for the holiday. And if I skip the holiday and I don't see mom always gets upset. So I'll be there for the holiday. He couldn't even say Christmas. And it was really getting out of hand. These things that happened at stores where they wouldn't wish you a Merry Christmas if you went to certain retail stores that are booming in business, by the way, over the Christmas season. So this is another war that President Trump has ended. The war on Christmas. Now, if you're just joining, President Trump just moments ago signed an executive order making Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas all federal holidays, so people can enjoy their Christmas properly. That's a great thing. It's pretty exciting, isn't it? Absolutely. All right. So let me get to this. So Candace Owens and Piers Morgan, I want to go through this a little bit. And something has happened here that no one has picked up on with Piers Morgan, Candace Owens, and this whole thing. And I'm going to share it with you in a moment after I go through all this. But I got to tell you, I've covered a lot with Candace Owens over the last year, and this has been just a bizarro bad year for Candace Owens. I mean, she's totally discredited herself. But this thing that she did, summoning Erica Kirk to Nashville, and they were going to hash it out, and she had things she had to say to Erica Kirk. To me, that's crazy. Erica Kirk flew to her, not the other way around. And I know that Candace Owens has kids, but so does Erica Kirk. And Erica Kirk, her husband was just assassinated a couple months ago. So she's going through a lot. And it was very bizarre. And who does Candace Owens think she is to have this sit down with Erica Kirk to ask Erica Kirk questions about the assassination of her husband? It's insanely sick and perverted to do such a thing. Could you imagine putting Jackie Kennedy in some interrogation room with a spotlight and dare to question her? I mean, come on. Come on. It was in such bad taste for Candace Owens to do that. But anyway, after the Erica Kirk summit that was brokered by Megyn Kelly, who's another piece of work when it comes to this, she went on Piers Morgan, and Piers cleaned her clock. This is just one. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I do have this one section I want to go through. Now, by the way, I want to say, if you're listening on any of the audio podcast platforms, if you want to catch the show live when I'm taking live calls and catch the show in video format, go to YouTube or YouTube Music and search for The Brian Craig Show. The Brian Craig Show podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. Just search for The Brian Craig Show. But if you want the podcast in video form where you can see the video and see me, and catch the show live. That's YouTube or YouTube Music. And if you're watching on the live stream with the green wall behind me and you want to see and hear the audio and video I play, the links in the description to my main stream. Crazy. Okay, and before I get into more of this, Candace Owens, she used to be somebody, and now she's just totally discredited herself. Um, you know, Candace doesn't do so well when she's held accountable. You know, I'm held accountable every time I do a show because you can pick up the phone and call me live on the show and call me out on the carpet and challenge me on anything I say, on anything I'm talking about every time I'm live streaming. And Candace, she's just used to talking at people, right? Not talking with people. And when it gets to these wackadoodle things like she is now against someone who is highly skilled, not some college kid whose brain hasn't stopped developing yet and is still growing, she doesn't do so well. Okay, now let me stop it there. If you're on hold, stand by. I'll get the calls in a little bit, maybe. No, I'll get the calls later. But now I want to share this, and I'll play more of that. Hold on, I lost my place here. But Candace Owens and Pierce Morgan. Pierce Morgan took Candace Owens to the woodshed here. And look at this little montage. I came across this on X from this same interview with Pierce Morgan and Candace. See, so you hear her right there in real time, changing what she's saying, right, in that little montage. All right, so let me go back to the main clip. See, I mean, this is a pretty heated thing. She's coming unglued, being challenged by Pierce. Oh my goodness. Pretty bad. Yep. Okay. So it went on for some time, and he cleaned her clock. And me personally, and you guys can let me know if you agree or disagree with this, she sounds like a nut. Very manic. The accusations she's making against Turning Point are sick and disgusting. That there's people inside Turning Point, of course, she won't name them, that had foreknowledge of Charlie Kirk's assassination, which means they were involved in the plot. For what purpose? For the money? For Erica? For the show? What is she talking about? So I was going to do a podcast last night and cover this, and I had to go with my wife to Miami and didn't get home till very late because I knew what happened here, and I was just too tired that late at night to do it. And I didn't get into it this morning because we had that breaking news with the president's speech. And here I am, 24 hours have gone by almost since I realized what happened here. And it's so obvious. I'm shocked that no one has picked up on this, but I have. And what happened here and with Pierce Morgan and Candace Owens is, when I tell you what it is, it's going to make perfect sense to you what just happened here. And I'm going to tell you what that is after the break. I'm Brian Craig. We're going to take a quick break and be back with your calls and more after this. All right, we're back. I'm Brian. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. Thanks for joining. Okay, so let me tell you what happened here with Piers Morgan and Candace Owens that no one's picked up on. Why did this all of a sudden happen? This incredible interview with Piers Morgan where Candace Owens lost her mind and went into a manic state. Do you remember who Piers Morgan is and why he's famous in this country? Why is Piers Morgan famous in the United States? What is his defining moment that made him a household name in the United States? Not the UK, in the US. If you remember now? Do you know? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not going to troll for calls on it. Piers Morgan is the very first celebrity apprentice of Donald Trump's. When The Apprentice went to the Celebrity Apprentice, he won the first season of it. He is Donald Trump's apprentice. And they have a friendship and a bond. Now, that doesn't always mean that Piers Morgan publicly on his show agrees with everything that President Trump does or says, because I have heard him be critical, but he is a close personal friend of President Trump, and he knows that he is famous in America because he is the first celebrity apprentice. Now, I know he was famous in the UK before that, but that's not in the United States. And President Trump got Piers Morgan to do this. I'm telling you. Candace Owens is a very destructive person. I don't mean self-destructive. She's obviously that. But she has been doing incredible destruction to our great Turning Point USA movement. That is so important. Her mission, out of bitter jealousy of whatever relationship she had with Charlie back in the day, and she would like to be the one getting all the attention, not Erica. But she also feels that she should be the front person for Turning Point USA, that it's owed to her since she was there in the early days with Charlie. She's on a mission to destroy Turning Point USA. That's what she wants to do out of jealousy. And Turning Point USA is the most effective, conservative, activist organization that the Republican Party has had ever in the modern era. Okay? We've had other groups, NRA, Christian Coalition, and different groups over the years. None have had the effectiveness of Turning Point USA, and she's not only trying to destroy it, she's done a lot of damage to it. She really, truly has. And we know that President Trump and JD and Susie Wiles, but in particular President Trump, close personal friends with Charlie Kirk, JD Vance and his wife, very tight with Erica Kirk. And President Trump understands the importance of Turning Point USA, and he called upon Piers Morgan to expose Candace Owens, to stop her in her tracks, to discredit her, and stop her from destroying Turning Point USA. And I'm in shock that everyone didn't pick up on this when it was going down. And I didn't get to do a podcast yesterday because I was so busy, and I really wanted to because I wanted to break this to everybody, and no one picked up on it. Pretty obvious. And things are really falling apart for Candace Owens. This is Liz Wheeler today. Okay, so that's Liz Wheeler, and Liz Wheeler, she's very, there's so many people out there, and she's not one that I talk about as much as I talk about some other people. I don't watch her as much, but not to take anything away, you can only watch so many people. But Liz Wheeler, she I was talking to my wife about this earlier, about Liz Wheeler. She's she is a authority. She has the personality of an authority. She's a very credible person. And she doesn't get involved in out of the that level of the that clique of people. Everybody knows who Liz Wheeler is, but she doesn't get involved in that clique high school drama that so many of these other famous conservative influencers get involved in. She's remember, she used to be on One American News. She is a serious news woman. She behaves like a serious newswoman. She has credibility. And when she talks, she makes a lot of sense. And she brings the receipts, right, as they say, the evidence. And she went through some pretty good stuff there, which also totally discredits Candace Owens. And then I want to play, this is Tim Pool on Candace, who's got a personal thing going. But he knows about these texts where she said she hated Charlie, 2 months before he was assassinated, and he's trying to get them to release it. So she is really being discredited by other conservatives, and this is a good thing. Because what she's doing is so wrong, it's twisted, it's incredibly inappropriate, and it's doing a lot of damage to our movement. And we need our movement and our voices united as we move into the midterm election season, which starts in January. And that's why President Trump sent Piers Morgan out to discredit Candace Owens, so that we can get this past us as the election season starts. So, listen, Candace Owens isn't going anywhere. She's one of the most famous women in the world, but she's becoming identified as a kook. And I know, her numbers are through the roof now, but you got to wonder how many of the people that are tuning in are just turning into rubberneck, the overturned 18-wheeler on the side of the freeway or the train wreck, right? Do the numbers reflect her influence power, that people are interested in what she has to say and are supportive and learning and going there for information? Or are they going to see just how crazy she can be? I mean, she's like the guy in Network at this point. I'm mad as hell and going nuts on the air, right? I mean, she's just losing her mind. And when she first started getting nuts, I don't know, a year ago, maybe longer, maybe, I don't know, and I was first covering it here on the program, and some of the crazy things that she was doing with her anti-Semitism and things that she said about the president. And what I told you guys was this: don't worry, I'm not worried about it. I've seen this happen before with people. When people are doing shows and they become like outrageous, doing, taking outrageous positions or talking about crazy things, and all of a sudden they have an explosion of popularity, what happens, there's a snowball effect where they got to keep amping it up all the time to keep that going. And eventually they'll touch on something and go over the line, and it doesn't seem like to them it's going to be over the line, and they don't know it's over the line until it is, and they've gone so far over the line, there's no way for them to walk it back. I've seen this happen with people throughout my career over and over again. And when I saw her losing it, I knew exactly where that was going. And we saw it, right? And we are there now. And, Charlie Kirk kept these people in line, these out of control egos of the conservative, famous influencer world. And without Charlie Kirk there as the big brother, it's really been a mess. But Donald Trump, he's like, enough of this, and he got involved, and he's taking care of business. Now, I want to share a couple other things with you here. That this one here, I didn't really like what I was hearing. This is from Stuart Varney's show over on Fox Business. I like Stuart Varney. There's been a lot of talk of AOC running for president in 2028. Is she going to be grown up enough? Will she be 35 then? Or is she 35 now? And listen to this. Okay, so Benson here, he's predicting that AOC, if she were to get the nomination, could win the presidency, and he's going to walk through it. Okay, now I'll go through the rest of this in a minute. When AOC was first elected to Congress, I told you guys who were listening to me then, I said, the Democrat Party is grooming her to run for president. And people laughed at me. And now we're getting closer to where it's a serious thing. And I'll tell you, now maybe you'll think what I'm about to say is sexist, and maybe it is. I don't think it is. We've had two women run against President Trump for president and lose. And what happened when they lost, right? Willie Brown's girlfriend, Kamala Harris, and Hillary Clinton. Mrs. Clinton and Kamala Harris, when they lost, they both reacted the same exact way. What happened? They couldn't come out and concede. They had to send a man up to concede for them. Remember? They both had emotional breakdowns. And I'll throw this out to you guys, and maybe this is unique not with women, but with liberal women. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think is emotionally unstable, don't you? She couldn't get President Trump said he was calling her 3 times a day, sometimes more, and he's president now. He doesn't have time to take her calls all the time, right? Susie Wiles even talked about that, and she had an emotional fit over it. She's a conservative woman. Well, she's not MAGA anymore. But are women, and this is a serious question I'm asking you, are women emotionally stable enough to handle being president? When we've seen the emotional breakdown of Marjorie Taylor Greene lately, but Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton both ran and lost, and they had breakdowns. They were not emotionally able to handle that loss. So if you can't come out and concede, which, by the way, when Hillary refused to concede, is that the first time in history that's happened? I think it has. A lot of people have lost runs for the presidency. So, so we had this happen twice, 2 in a row. The only 2 times women had the nomination. So I don't think it's that at least these liberal women are not emotionally together enough for it. But anyway, let's get back to Benson here, and I rewound it just a bit. He's talking about AOC's chances of winning the presidency. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's predicting that an AOC presidency is possible. What do you guys think about that? If you're on hold, hang in there. We'll take a quick break and be right back. All right, we're back. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
How you doing, Brian? This is Jose from the Bronx.
Hey, what's
How's
up?
everybody doing?
All
Happy
right.
Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to opine a little bit on the AOC possible run. I don't think it will ever happen. The establishment Democrats will do the same thing they did to Bernie, and they're going to run her out. Right now, it's Gavin all the way in 2028 for the national DNC, nominee. And that's my 2 cents. They would not let her go through.
Well, I agree.
Like Bernie Sanders.
It's right now it's unlikely, but when we get to 32 and 36 and 40, she's got to get elected to a higher office. She wants to try to replace Schumer in the Senate in New York, which I think is unlikely.
Yeah,
I really do.
yeah.
All right, appreciate the call.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Take care. This was crazy when this story dropped earlier today. I for a second I thought this can't be real. They renamed the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. Isn't that something? And it was a unanimous vote on the Trump Kennedy Center board to make that change, which and they have Trump's name first. So that's really got them going. President Trump is doing so much trolling. This thing with the plaques. With the presidents, this is one that really has them freaking out. Here's Caitlin Collins from CNN. Yeah, I mean they're just having freakouts about these plaques, and I remember in the first term when Pelosi and Schumer went to the Oval Office and had that live argument with President Trump. Do you guys remember that? That was one of my favorite moments in the first term. And I remember what Schumer said: elections have consequences, Mr. President. Yeah, they do. They do. And we won. And all of this, the Clintons, if you remember, they were renting out the Lincoln bedroom to donors. What was it? Was it $50,000 a night or $100,000 a night? I can't remember exactly how much it was. It was 50,000, 100,000. It was a lot. And they were literally renting out the Lincoln bedroom, which really wasn't Lincoln's bedroom, but it's called that. And I don't remember the Democrats talking about the disrespect at the White House. President Trump, we won the election, and the majority of the people are with him. And one of the things, the plaques are funny. It's really they're a joke by President Trump, and it's a joke on all of them. And these other presidents, they don't even consider him one of them in their club. They do nothing but disrespect President Trump. They don't properly honor him. They don't let him be with their little fraternity that they have, and he's supposed to respect them? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, and by the way, the things he wrote on the plaques, which I'm not going to go over them all now because I've talked about it a little bit already, and you're welcome to check them out yourself if you want to read over them again. What are on these plaques that are not true? Like when he says that Obama was one of the most divisive presidents in history. That is true. That is very true. Very divisive. And remember the town hall meetings on Obamacare, right? This is, let me see if I got this. Okay, this is nuts with Zelensky. Zelensky was speaking today. Politicians change, some of them die. What's he talking about here? And the last thing we want is Ukraine part of NATO. First of all, that was the major reason Putin invaded, is because Biden was indicating that he was going to allow Ukraine to join NATO. And Putin said no to that. And Biden said yes, and then that's what happened. He had the, and that was the major driving. Oh, we had a weak president too with Biden, but that was the main driving force that led to this god awful, very destructive war. Putin feels very strong about that, them not being in NATO, and they're so irresponsible and reckless over there and corrupt in Ukraine. NATO, the NATO alliance. An attack on one is an attack on all. You going to trust Ukraine? No. You can't trust Ukraine to be part of the NATO alliance. They will cause the Third World War. They may do it anyway with what they're doing. And this statement that he made about there may be a new politician, some of them die. If you remember, there were Ukrainian connections to both Trump's assassin, right? The Butler assassin had multiple cell phones. One of them had numbers in Ukraine that it had called. And the golf course assassin here in Florida not only had been to Ukraine, but the golf course assassin, the guy in the bushes who was convicted, who's in prison now, he was also a recruiter for Ukraine, who was actively a recruiter recruiting former American military as mercenaries to go and fight for Ukraine. So both assassins, the Butler assassin, there's other connections too, but because of this, I'm just focusing on that. The Butler assassin and the golf course assassin here in Florida both had Ukrainian connections. And the golf course assassin, he had an AK-47. Remember that, an AK-47? The AK-47 is what the Ukrainians had. In the early days of the war in Ukraine, when the war first began, remember they were handing out AK-47s in a high school gym to high school students. Remember that? So we have strong Ukrainian connections to both assassins, big time, that I just mentioned, especially the second one at the golf course. And I hear Zelensky say something like this. Do you think that Zelensky in Ukraine had anything to do with those assassinations? And now that Zelensky said this, you got to watch out for people who are public people, that are politicians, that say one thing in English and something else in another language. And they say things in another language they wouldn't say in English, thinking that the English-speaking American population won't hear about it. Well, we heard about it. There's translation apps now. There's really no such thing as a foreign language anymore with all these translation apps that are out there. That's pretty bad. And not only is it bad, it's very disgusting. And believe me, President Trump knows a lot more about this in Ukraine than we know. And Zelensky has lost this war. This war is not winnable. Russia's never been defeated in a war. They're a very tiny country in comparison to Russia, and there's just no way that Zelensky could win. President Trump had everything perfectly set up for Zelensky with that mineral deal where there were going to be U.S. companies with American workers with their families working in eastern Ukraine with those mineral rights, and that would have been a non-military DMZ of sorts. Putin would never move against and kill Americans. And Zelensky said he'd sign the deal, he came to the White House, and then wouldn't do it. And how much of his country has he lost since then? This war's lost. It cannot be won unless we wanted to start the Third World War, and then no one wins that. And the war has been lost because of Zelensky. Now, I want to share this with you because this dropped while I was on the air here, and I'm sure as the day goes on, we're going to get more information. Providence police have announced they've identified the suspected Brown University shooter and have a warrant for their arrest. Police are also investigating a possible link between the Brown University shooting and the murder of the MIT professor. And by the way, that's from a Fox News reporter. This is going to be a very interesting one because this person this shooter at the Brown University incident, very well may have been allowed to roam free because we have these social justice warriors running the state of Rhode Island. And they are so liberal. I mean, it's crazy. And I really feel, based on the background and who the shooter is, I really do think that in private, these people that are running things in Rhode Island and Providence, that they would rather the shooter get away than be caught if they fit into one of their victim classes. I really do, because I've seen the way that they've behaved over the last few days following this. It's disgusting, isn't it? And I hope we get the identity of that person today and we can get to the bottom of it. And if the MIT professor has a connection to or the shooter is also the MIT professor killer, and it's found out that the authorities at Brown or in Providence or in Rhode Island in general didn't do what they could have done or were supposed to do because of their liberalism, letting a guy get away with this, well then, they're accessories. Look at how, liberalism is so insane. Look at Australia, right? Look what happened in Australia. We have this god-awful anti-Semitic attack. There's another suspected Islamic attack since then in Australia. And what's Australia's government doing? They're talking about more gun control. They already confiscated most everyone's gun. The problem isn't gun control. You know what the problem is. They've got a problem we have, the immigration, right? The liberals in Australia, like the liberals in this country, have allowed unscreened people to immigrate into their country. The problem is not the guns. It's already against the law in Australia to use guns to murder people, right? And it's also illegal to use a gun in self-defense in Australia. There are people that have been arrested and put in prison in Australia for shooting people that have broken into their house while they're in their home. When that hero, bravest man I've ever seen, jumped that Islamic terrorist at the beach in Sydney and jumped on him and took the rifle from him, and he was pointing the rifle at him, I was thinking to myself, don't shoot him. You're going to go to prison if you shoot this terrorist. And you know what? He would have. He'd be in the hospital, but he'd be handcuffed to the bed. That's how crazy they are. You see how liberals operate. They're out of their minds. Now, if you'd like to support my channel, my podcast, my program, my content, become a Patreon supporter. If you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to commercial-free editions of all my podcast episodes. All right? You also get access to a lot of exclusive things that my wife Kathy and I post to Patreon that I post nowhere else and my wife posts nowhere else. And I also do live streams that are for Patreon supporters only. And those live streams, they're like the ones I do on YouTube, except they're a little more casual and unplugged. I talk about a lot of things that I don't talk about here. You get a real behind-the-scenes look at what's going on with everything. And that's available only to Patreon supporters. And that live stream is actually on the Patreon platform itself. So when you become a paid Patreon supporter, make sure you click on the notifications, because you'll get a notification when I go live. Okay? And you'll get to catch it. We have a chat room just like on YouTube, except it's a troll-free zone. That's right. It's just good Patreon supporters. If you're a top Patreon supporter, you get a live on-air thank you shout-out on every episode. And you get your name up on the screen on YouTube. So the names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, and Doris. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of this episode on whatever platform you are listening on. Or go to patreon.com/Real Brian Craig Show. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.